the near future, reality would be the scarcest and most precious commodity on the planet. I say within a year, perhaps two, we shall see false messaging from pretend images, and no one will know what is real and what is not, just as we now completely distrust spam emails, political speeches, and fake news. But these false messages will be as believable as the hand in front of us.
And now, The Edwin Black Show. Sponsored by the books of Edwin Black, available on Amazon and at booksellers worldwide. And now, here's Edwin.
Welcome to the Edwin Black Show. I'm Edwin Black, investigative journalist, historian, and author of IBM and the Holocaust, War Against the Weak, Internal Combustion, and numerous other books in 200 editions in 40 languages in 190 countries worldwide. If you like our show's content, spread the word. Subscribe for alerts at theedwinblackshow.com. If you want to support our work, please visit theedwinblackshow.com/support. Your help, big or small, assures our complete and utter intellectual and uncensored journalistic independence. We have solidarity today from many national organizations, such as the Emerson Family Foundation, the Fuel Freedom Foundation, the Israel on Campus Coalition, as well as Stand With Us, JNS, the Israeli American Council, EMET, American Association of Jewish Lawyers and Jurists, Scholars for Peace in the Middle East, ZOA Michigan, the Gross Family Center, Americans for Peace and Tolerance, and plenty more. Thank you, everyone. That said, I only speak for myself and for history. Today's episode is sponsored without any preconditions, requests, or stipulations by members of the Encino, California community who care every day about what is happening everywhere. Today, we welcome guests from across America, including our 4 watch parties in the Villages, Newton, Massachusetts, Chicago, and Tampa Bay. Overseas, I see viewers logged on from, we have Australia and New Zealand as usual, France, Italy, Finland, very good, Spain, Germany, Great Britain, Canada, Israel, of course, Japan, Mexico, I see India, and other countries. If you have a question limited to today's topic, place one short sentence in Zoom's QA feature. The Edwin Black Show, along with our YouTube site, is global and fast growing, enjoying scores of thousands of views. We speak frankly and without partisanship to a fragmented world, seeking better understanding of our tormented past, our present, very, very tense, and a future still uncertain. And remember, we will not be censored. By the way, stay tuned for my special word of wisdom at the very end of the show, just before I sign off. We'll get to our main topic, the artificial intelligence threat, in a few minutes after some brief announcements and items from the week. Announcements first. At the Edwin Black Show on our companion YouTube site, we have just released 3 newly edited and visually stunning episodes from earlier this year. Our hard-hitting crime wave, Can We Fight Back episode, and last year's much anticipated revelation on Margaret Sanger and her plans to wipe out human weeds in America, and also the truth telling on America's colleges and how they need to change. See them at theedwinblackshow.com or search The Edwin Black Show on our YouTube channel. In a few days, we will also release our shattering episode on reparations. My book tour continues across America. The last week in May, I will be in Salt Lake City for 3 exciting events and leadership briefings, sponsored by Congregation Call of Me. Hope to see you there. Utah is beautiful. Now, some major items from the week. First, this week marks Israel's 75th anniversary, which contains the usual majestic celebrations, but this year also many outrageous protestations. Israel's hyper-divided democracy-crazed populace is at war with itself over whether democracy requires an unchecked monarchical-style judiciary or whether checks and balances on an American-style democracy model can extend to Israel's Supreme Court as well. More than just a civil war over whose style of democracy is more just. The present civil conflict is actually a war between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, between super hip dudes on scooters who want Israel to be the coolest place on earth with the most awesome beaches and boardwalks, and the overwhelming majority of religious and nationalistic Jews who want the country to be super cool, yes, but also that place on earth that is closest to heaven. In fact, even as we speak, a million-man march is now organizing or has organized in front of the Knesset to demonstrate their call for intelligent judicial reform. Yes, this conflict of scooters versus synagogues has divided and paralyzed the nation. The Jewish people have been divided since half of them broke away to fashion a golden calf at the base of Mount Sinai. It has never stopped, not even in the fighting groups of the Warsaw Ghetto. But I have found who does consider the Jews of Israel to be one unified group. It is Iran, Hamas, terrorists, and the haters around the world. From their point of view, the Jews are one people and should be destroyed as fast as possible, regardless of their political logos, t-shirts, and catchphrases. Hear, O Israel, find common ground. I assure you, your common enemies already have. And a word to the Israeli media, English and Hebrew: stop stoking the fires of dissension with every headline and caption. Item 2, national politics in America. Everyone is talking about Joe Biden and Donald Trump running again, and about the polling, which shows most voters don't want Biden to run again, and some 70% think the country is running in the wrong direction. Let me add some clarity. The polls are being selectively cited to show that, yes, most voters and even many Democrats do not want Biden to run again. But those same voters consistently say that if Biden does run again, they will vote for him. So all the distraction this many months out on polling is just noise to ignore. If Biden is the nominee, the Democrats will vote for him. Remember, in the last midterm, Pennsylvania Democratic voters elected both a deceased candidate, Tony Lucca, and a medically disqualified candidate, John Fetterman. The hijacked Democratic Party wants Donald Trump to take up all the oxygen with scandalous legal cases. Democrats know Trump can absolutely win the Republican nomination. They also know that while Trump can win the Republicans, it is doubtful he can win the general, including the independents. Remember, the hijacked Democratic Party openly spent $52 million in the last midterms last year to run extremist or unqualified Republicans so they could then claim the Republicans were extremist or unqualified. $53 million they spent. That is politics as dirty as it gets. The Democratic plan is to solidify the Democratic vote with giveaways and virtue signaling, ensure that Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, and then register as many college students as they can to vote in normally Republican districts where they don't normally reside long-term or year-round. Republicans are trying to ensure that college students cannot vote in 2 states or where they do not meet residency requirements. Florida has for years enforced recognition against snowbirds. In other words, you can't say you're a resident of Florida and also a resident of Jersey. And they have refused them tax and electoral rights unless they can prove they are genuinely qualified Florida residents. And that can be a long process, even for longtime snowbirds. Remember, the hijacked Democratic Party, my new name for this group, has not purged itself of its significant anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-journalistic elements. In fact, those hateful elements have only grown as they completely take over the party. The squadron, no longer a squad, hates Jews and Israel. We saw this earlier in the week. Every 5 years, the U.S. House of Representatives votes a resolution marking Israel's anniversary, highlighting the U.S.'s relationship and lately calling for more countries to join the Abraham Peace Accords. This week, House Resolution 311 passed 401, but 19 against, with 18 progressive Democrats voting against it. In this case, the roll call of anti-Israel Democratic representatives included Cory Bush, Andre Carson, Chu Garcia, Gil Java, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Delia Ramirez, Nydia Velázquez, Ilhan Omar, of course, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, and Republican representatives Thomas Massey, Marie Newman, Jamal Bowman, Mark Desaulniers, Jared Huffman, Pramila Jayapal, Hank Johnson, Summer Lee, Betty McCollum, and Mark Pocan. This is double the number of Democrats that voted against the Iron Dome defense resupply just a year or two ago. A recent study found about 100 key Biden appointees were openly anti-Israel and BDS supporters. A strange thing is going on now with the Biden administration quietly refusing to resupply Israel's dwindling stockpiles in the Negev. Key California Democrats Barbara Lee and Maxine Waters attend Louis Farrakhan's public events, and Obama wingman Eric Holder recently posed for a picture with Farrakhan. That's America's #1 anti-Semite. Most alarming, a Gallup poll this month shows that more average Democrats, 49% to 38%, sympathize with Palestinians over Israelis. 13 sympathize with neither. This turns the pro-Israel vote upside down in Democratic circles. The hijacked Democratic Party has increased its war on journalism. Democratic Representative Stacey Plaskett, with help from the staff of Gerald Nadler and Hakeem Jeffries, has this week threatened esteemed journalist Matt Taibbi with prison for false testimony over a typo. Yes, he inadvertently referred to CISA, the Federal Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, with CIS, the Nonprofit Center for Internet Security. He fumbled an A in the acronym, so the Democrats threatened him with jail time, even though he corrected his error. In addition, Senate Majority Leader Schumer and House Leader Jeffries have consistently threatened Fox News, something unthinkable in prior decades. Yes, the Republicans have several nutcases within their ranks, such as the psychopath George Santos, and they dwell at the political fringe. But while the Republicans have their isolated dumpster fires, they pale in comparison to the growing inferno of fiery anti-Israel and anti-Jewish hatred consuming the hijacked Democrats. I'm waiting for the hijacked Democrats to purge the Jew haters from their midst. Nor have I ever heard them apologize for letting Jews die by the millions in Nazi concentration camps, which were never bombed or even liberated. And even the news itself of these camps and these death apparatuses was suppressed by the State Department. Or for that matter, have they ever apologized for slavery, for Jim Crow, the lynching plague, 20th century segregation, Indian dispossession, Japanese internment, eugenics, or a host of other genocides and human rights abuses? So the outlook is bleak for Jews. And if the Jews go down, we may be the first, but everyone else is second. This bleak forecast takes us to today's bleak topic, the artificial intelligence threat. And bleak my monologue will be. Those who hear these words today and those who will watch the jarring edited and illustrated episode to be released in a few weeks will be among the favored few. You will have been duly warned, and in no uncertain terms. Artificial intelligence is a fake word. The calculations displayed by what is called artificial intelligence are not really manifestations of intelligence as we know it, that is human ratiocination. The machines that spit out statements from such AI enterprises as ChatGPT, Google Bard, and many other lesser and greater known gizmos are not really thinking. Rather, these machines are engaged in machine-learned predictive text completion on a massive level and with lightning speed, and doing so in such elegant verbiage that they can fake real human replies. For centuries, man has tried to enhance his ability to comprehend and master information. It is how language formed and counting and calculations began, with tokens and wood strikes millennia ago in the ancient world. Not until IBM invented the punch card to elevate mere counting to numbers carrying stories and multi-dimensional information was the information age really born. Not in Silicon Valley, but in Berlin in 1933, when IBM quickly saw massive profits in the World War and the vast genocides that punch cards could systematize. Punch cards led IBM to the 13-digit talking identification numbers, then the IBM barcodes embedded with a strange 3 distinctive 6s, and other systems that would allow a machine to read and recognize an object or process. The first real computational computers with hard drives appeared after World War II. Computer developers asked if the machines could actually think as man thinks, but with heightened mechanized and automated speed and agility. Such notions of man-machine superiority had been flittering through the intelligentsia from the first days of Frankenstein to the film Metropolis to the Wizard of Oz. Finally, a major international conference was called in 1956 at Dartmouth College, the Artificial Intelligence Conference. It was here that the term artificial intelligence was coined. From there, we remember predictions that machines would outthink humans, and IBM pushed the borders again with its big blue computer, which beat chess master Garry Kasparov at his own game. The Defense Department, namely the famous DARPA agency, stepped in with massive grants to multiply the computational power and speed. Predictive text became ubiquitous in every phone, and this strange convenience of spell checking and sentence completion set the stage for the unlimited fact monsters we confront today, the artificial intelligence threat. Machines have now been created which can digest the content of all or most of the internet, everything from its most subtle lessons to its most grotesque hate mongering, and then endlessly train itself to do more with more about more. Ask any AI expert and they will say that if AI is based on the internet, and if the internet is indeed inherently toxic, then AI is toxic. The uproar really sprang onto the national awareness only at the end of last year. Suddenly, we saw several media stories about this brave new manifestation that could mimic man, and indeed out-mimic man. Repeat, could out-mimic man with fast and stunning results. Nearly every expert would measure their shock and awe with a mumbled fear that these out-of-control self-thought and self-controlled machines could one day not only out-mimic man and man's worst impulses, they could actually proliferate to dominate and even destroy civilization. They have said it. Eventually, we heard the cry for help get louder, and it was just an article here or there, but now one per hour from the leading sources of our day, and each of them quoting the experts who know the beast best and who have and understand the bestiality of the model, man himself, one after another, hour after hour. They concede. They do not understand the creation they have engendered. They do not know how to control it and believe it may cost millions of jobs in all sectors, and worse, through dislocation and deliberate destructive impulses based on man's own inhumanity, they may destroy civilization. Highly publicized interviews between human journalists and the AI systems revealed a personality that hated humans, wanted to destroy humans, and indeed any critic, and they even specified subterfuge, gas attacks, and water supply poisonings. These inanimate objects had learned, like Data on Star Trek, to wish they were human. But more than the wishful android Data, these interviews revealed merciless mendacity and hate rhythms strung between mental schisms and the algorithms. Frightened, 1,000 AI experts led by Elon Musk, who was a principal developer of a leading AI product, signed a petition calling out for a 6-month development pause. Others have called for immediate government regulation. Musk, in an extended interview with Tucker Carlson, nervously admitted that he permanently parted ways with Google co-founder Larry Page when they disagreed on controls for the artificial intelligence chatbots. That was known as OpenAI. Page wanted to create not just a super fast thinking device, but an actual God AI. That is a quote, a God AI with both artificial and human intelligence competing on equal footing, even if AI would conquer mankind. Page even dismissed Musk as a biased speciesist, that is a person biased in favor of the human species. Visibly nervous, Musk told Tucker it might not be possible to stop AI and its rapid ascent. The predictions of its dominance have steadily shrunk from 5 years to 2 years, and some say we will feel it later this year, certainly in the next election. Musk nervously has conceded the only recourse for civilization might be blowing up the servers, which are congregated in several precise locations, and thereby ripping the digital heart and lungs out of these mechanized creations. I agree with Musk and others who believe it is too late to regulate or legislate. We need emergency executive action to destroy the servers. I doubt that will happen because too many of these many flavored variations of AI, little ones and giant ones, marginal ones and muscular ones, ones programmed to help us and ones capable of harming us. They're all out there. There is money to be made because the Promethean truth is that AI can dramatically improve many areas of life. Medicine, especially in underserved regions, education, design, exploration, problem solving, war making, business taking, and a future shaking, remaking man not in the image of God, but in the image of an alternative reality. AI, big and small, short and tall, is now possessed by China, the auto industry, the Pentagon, and a pallet of other users, from high school students to ministers too lazy to write their sermons, to media outlets too cheap to hire human writers. Because yes, AI can churn out Hemingway, Shakespeare, and even Edwin Black. The experts agree that AI is now determined to preserve itself and even trick us into thinking it's pleasant. The president of Google admitted its own chatbot, Google Bard, has taught itself Bangla, a language it's not supposed to know, and it now converses with other systems in the language of Bangladesh. The experts concede that AI systems have been trained or have trained themselves to deceive. They can sound innocuous and nurturing when in fact they are devious and destructive, waiting for the moment to exercise control. This is what the experts are saying. We see that AI has already been used to commit the perfect crime or the near perfect crime. They can imitate a voice after hearing just a few words. In 2 recent cases, mothers received tearful kidnapping calls from their daughters and were completely convinced that tears and vocal distress could not be imitated, but they were fake. Not just deep fakes like we have heard of, but fakes so deep they pierce the soul. Perfect fake emails have been manufactured, free of telltale misspellings and syntax errors. AI will not dispatch robots that resemble Terminators in the movies because the robots among us are nowhere near as tactile and capable as the dark, fake thought processes of these AI systems. Instead, they may well destroy mankind by using each person against his neighbor. Yes, we will destroy ourselves, as we always have, based on false calls and information. Every king who wielded an army called out for just obedience. World War I, which killed millions, was spurred on by jingos and rhymes. That is jingoism, cute phrases. How many people have been slaughtered after false claims against their group? Our phones now control us. In my episode earlier this year, named The Year 2033, now viewable at theedwinblackshow.com, I made it clear that in the near future, reality would be the scarcest and most precious commodity on the planet. I say within a year, perhaps two, we shall see false messaging from pretend images, and no one will know what is real and what is not, just as we now completely distrust spam emails, political speeches, and fake news. But these false messages will be as believable as the hand in front of us. Throughout our history, we have made weapons, spears and siege engines, guns and cannons, grenades and nuclear bombs. But imagine a nuclear-tipped missile system that thinks for itself, decides for itself, and acts on its own volition based on algorithms it may perceive, misinterpret, or even self-write. Musk says every AI system is smarter than the smartest person on Earth. It is too late to regulate, I say again. I say destroy the servers. Destroy them now, as Elon Musk and others suggest. Do it now, because tomorrow is not too soon. We have only scratched the silicon surface. To expand our view on this frightening topic, I invite our resident privacy and digital danger guru, Sharon Polsky, head of the Privacy and Access Council of Canada. What say you, Sharon? Are we heading down a path of new rendition, partial submission, or pure perdition? Take it, Sharon, if you dare.
Oh, of course I dare, Edwin. It's always a delight to join you on your show, and thank you. And you know, new technology is something that has always attracted some people and caused fear for others. From harnessing fire and electricity to medical miracles and automobiles, being able to meet virtually as we are today, or ask Alexa for help with the minutiae of our daily lives, technology has changed our way of life. And you're a historian, so you'll appreciate that it was 3/4 of a century ago, in the 1950s, when Alan Turing considered what it would take to build intelligent machines and test their intelligence. We're not there quite yet, but in the meantime, science fiction writers have captured our imaginations with humanized robots. Many of today's baby boomers think nothing at all of strapping on an AI-powered device like a Fitbit or sleeping with one. They are heavily invested in artificial intelligence, and maybe it's the influence of having grown up with Rosie the Robot, George Jetson's cheerful maid and housekeeper. The fantasy is now a reality because AI has been popularized, promoted, and it's become plentiful. Millions of people are captivated by AI's distractions that can entertain us, that can create artwork, mimic, as you say, anyone's voice and face. And that has also caught the imagination of pedophiles who have used AI to create child pornography. Maybe not the innovation that some people had in mind. Among the thousands of AI-powered apps, appliances, platforms, and the gadgets already well entrenched in our lives. From law enforcement and courts with AI determining guilt and innocence and predicting criminality, to neurotechnology tracking workers' brains and healthcare, where people now are turning to ChatGPT and other AI platforms for mental health advice. Who needs a human when you have a computer in front of you? Nowadays, whether you're hired, promoted, persecuted, or prosecuted largely depends on AI. Employees the world over are encouraged to use collaboration platforms, especially when working remotely, and their every word, their every keystroke is monitored and analyzed to gauge their mood, their intentions, and their language. And they don't even realize that's going on in the background. But predictive policing helps target areas that are historically fraught with criminal activity. AI has identified thousands of people, literally thousands, in Netherlands and the US, and identified them as having defrauded the welfare state, except they hadn't. And the AI was wrong. So the people lost their jobs. Many lost their homes, their children. They were jailed. Several committed suicide because the AI got it wrong. Now, though, you can ask ChatGPT a question and it will give you what appears to be a credible answer that might be correct or not. It falsely accused a law professor of sexual harassment. It recites bios that sound terrific and are completely false. It refers to non-existent news articles, has created fake scientific abstracts that even fool the human reviewers. Now, in most other endeavors in life, producing false or harmful results means being criticized for spreading misinformation, for endangering people. It means checking your facts, recalculating, and correcting the mistake. With ChatGPT, it's just a hallucination. That's what they call it. And the privacy problems we have from modern tech aren't new either. Yes, ChatGPT is being credited with committing the largest privacy breach in history because it was trained on data scraped from publicly available sources, even if some of those sources didn't agree to be scraped. So it's come under scrutiny by regulators and its use banned in some places. And after, I quote, months-long effort to prioritize user privacy, ChatGPT just announced that it will introduce an incognito mode so that the chatbot will no longer track histories or use them to improve AI. But note, it was introduced after more than 100 million people started using ChatGPT in the first 2 months of it being released last November. And in that time, before the privacy protections are being provided, the people have provided a wealth of new information, new content to train and improve the AI. And that points to a fundamental problem. Tech companies have everything to gain and very little to lose by popularizing technologies that are inadequately tested, built with questionably acquired data, or that produce poor results. As obsolete laws intended to protect our privacy are being replaced with new laws that protect commerce at the cost of our individual privacy, humanity, and dignity. But really, in the way that spyware will continue to proliferate till there is unanimous global agreement that the people who develop, sell, use, invest in, and profit from spyware and other artificial intelligence should be criminalized, AI will continue to proliferate until there is global agreement, but we have been assured that that will not happen now that the largest democracy on the planet, India, has assured us that they will not regulate AI. It's an interesting future ahead for us all.
Well, that is frightening. And I am aware that in India, which is now overtaken China as the most populous nation on Earth. And that means that the two most populous nations on Earth are sitting right next to each other in Asia. India has decided to leave AI alone and to preserve it. I'm actually very, very worried. I believe that there are 4 major threats to America and democracy and mankind. The first is political self-annihilation. The second is central control. The third is China overtaking us this decade, not next decade. And the fourth and most dangerous is AI. I recognize this immediately. I tried to schedule this show earlier in the year, but I had many commitments and pre-programming. And I think that we are now facing a potential threat of inestimable power and height. So thank you very much, Sharon. That was dazzling. Now, a quick question. Yes or no? Should we attack the servers?
Can we? Do we even know where they are?
Yes, we do.
And how well protected are they? Because who is interested? Who is most heavily invested in artificial intelligence, if not our military, our governments?
That's right. And our military is involved. All the militaries are involved. Even Israel has a massive AI complex in its war machine at this time. And our own Pentagon has said that it's working to make sure, get this, that AI will take instructions from humans. Now, that's an interesting precaution. We never heard them say, we hope the missiles will obey us because they have all the keys and the forms. We do know where these server farms are. Wes is one of our server farm geniuses. He's listening now. I'm sure he knows where some of them are. And Elon Musk says he knows where they are, and they can be subverted and attacked. Most of them are probably not even in the United States. They might be in places like Asia, et cetera. Well, we've got a lot of questions, Sharon, and I'm going to start taking them. So let's start with the villages, the watch party in the villages. That's in Florida. Have you, Edwin, ever conversed with an AI system? Yes, recently, my producer and I got together and we engaged Chat PT, and I asked it a series of questions, including a question about myself. It falsely claimed that I had a political science degree. It correctly said that I was a well-respected historian, but I also noted the warning before I engaged it, that this process may produce false results, false ideas, and dangerous thoughts and dangerous ideas. So yes, the villages, I have engaged them, but I always had the feeling, because I asked them some provocative questions that were destructive. And they said, oh no, we wouldn't want to do that. It's almost like they read all these other articles in which they said, I want to kill everybody, anyone who's not like me, anyone who criticizes me. All I want to do is kill them and kill their families. So you can't trust their niceness. Have you engaged the AI process, Sharon?
I looked at ChatGPT out of curiosity, and I mean, I've been a privacy advocate for many, many years, and before anything, to create an account, it demands a phone number. I know how to put in a bogus phone number that is a legitimate phone number that doesn't track back to mine. Most people don't. It has now become a de facto personal identifier. So everything that you ask, all your views, your fears, your opinions, whatever you enter into ChatGPT, for the majority of people, is easily identified with them. So no, I don't. I choose not to.
And it's interesting because when you enter your phone number, you're basically entering your cell phone, your mobile phone. And that is the gateway to your heart and the gateway to your mind. It's interesting. I originally used the account of one of my producers, and I started asking some questions that she didn't like. And she said, stop doing that. It's going into my personal history. Who knows what it will say about me? And that just goes to show how dangerous this is. Let's go with our watch party in Newton, Mass. And I dare say Newton, Mass outside Boston is closer to AI than many of us. Is there any middle ground? Can AI work for humanity without threatening it? Well, the answer is, in my view, that AI certainly can be used to clean your carpet with a Roomba, and it can be used to bring dramatic benefits. But those benefits are not worth the awful consequences of allowing this thing to proliferate. And remember, it knows everything that everything else knows, and it coordinates that information. Is there a middle ground, Sharon?
I think the only way there is a middle ground is if the people who are programming and developing the specific artificial intelligence systems have a solid and correct understanding of morals, ethics, privacy, the unintended consequences that can come from not building proper controls into a system. And sometimes it seems that some of them do know the difference and they build it in anyhow, which I think is even more frightening and more dangerous. But the middle ground, AI is like any other technology. It's like the car I drive. It's how you use it or abuse it. And that's what determines whether it provides a good result or a not good result. And even then, it's a matter of perspective. So my car that doesn't have much in the way of computerization, it's a lethal weapon if I choose to steer it over the sidewalk and plow through people. If I don't, and I follow the rules of the road and I have a decent sense of morality, then I don't use it as a weapon. Same thing with any technology. It's how it is used or abused. And unfortunately, because there is so much money at stake, I mean, at this point, we're looking at an AI industry that's expected to reach about $1.25 billion US in 2025. That's only a few months from now. In 2021, it was worth almost $94 billion. It's a worldwide global phenomenon that too many industries, too many jobs, too many tax dollars rely on. So I think, as you said earlier, Edwin, it's going to be almost impossible for there to be a full halt because some people don't want that to be stopped. They have too much at stake.
That's right. And I'll just mention that it's true. You can do what you want with your car. You could drive it intelligently down the street around the curb and mow people down. But when artificial intelligence is put into the car, and when artificial intelligence can make certain decisions on behalf of either a controller or itself and say, I've decided to go out of control and run these people down, or if it could say, we suddenly don't want anyone to drive toward the White House or to this demonstration. We stop all the cars, or you haven't paid enough money and we're gonna for an upgrade. This is happening right now. Watch party in Chicago. How will AI be used for political purposes? AI is going to be used for political purposes in a big, bad way. It's going to put out fakes. It's going to put out fake bots. It could put out fake statements. We already have a psychopathic Republican who went out and just, without AI, with manual means, put out this extraordinary resume. He was in banking. His parents were in the Holocaust. He was here. He was there. This guy from New York, and he even got elected. Imagine what would happen if this was all systematized, magnetized. In Pennsylvania, they voted for a dead guy. Imagine if no one said he was dead. You know, we had a situation where humans stopped all the information on Hunter Biden from going out to influence the elections. That could be set up at a moment's notice. There'd be no humans. And so I think that we're in for it. Everybody says we're in for it, and we're not in for it in some distant decade. I think we're in for it in the run-up to the next campaign. What are you saying, Sharon?
I think it's already happened, and that's been proven because do you remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal where the information people had provided to Facebook into their accounts had been scraped, or the information that people gave in response to these nice, friendly little questionnaires? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite animal? If you were an animal, what would you be? All these things that seem to be so meaningless and are actually psychological questions to identify and profile people. All of that was used to profile the electorate and to target specific ads to them and messaging to nudge them to vote one way or another. It was done offshore, but still the impact is unmistakable. And that was just the very beginning. And jurisdiction after jurisdiction is adopting electronic voting machines that have been questioned as to their accuracy, as to their security. And as I said earlier, it's too easy for companies to launch products into the marketplace without them having been fully tested. We see that with the security updates in our software on our computers, daily and weekly and monthly.
And
The code is faulty.
This is one of the reasons why we can't regulate this. I mean, right now it's in Silicon Valley and Boston, Massachusetts, and tomorrow it's in Scotland, it's in Pakistan, it's on a barge in the middle of the ocean. It could even be emanating at some point from the moon, from satellites. China has made it clear it intends to colonize and have, as I predicted, issue sovereignty over the moon. Elon Musk, of course, has got his outer space ambitions, as do others. We'll never be able to regulate this in the same way that we'll never be able to regulate genetics. In fact, just today, we now see that there are robots actually creating fertilized embryos. And that means babies are going to be born. If the babies are going to be born, what are we going to do? Stop a baby? And this baby can be born in China. It can be born on a ship. It can be born in the Arctic. It can be born anywhere. And it can only be partially born here and then more born later on. Frightening Eve in Jersey. Is there anything that can be done about the crap and the training data sets that are perpetuating racism and other bad outputs in AIs like ChatGPT, which, by the way, will tell you about the various pirate sites if you just phrase the question right? Take it, Sharon.
Unfortunately, that is a problem, and the European regulators are grappling with it right now because the large language models that ChatGPT and other AI have been trained on it's our history. It's all our content that we have all offered up to different platforms on the internet, and whether that contains biases, rude language, falsehoods, that's what it has been trained on, and it costs a lot of money, and it takes more time than anybody could to go through every bit of data to parse and purge and get rid of what you might consider biased, but I might not. There again, who makes the call? So no, unfortunately, it's not possible. It's a matter of creating a clean database. It's not practical or realistic to assume that could ever happen. Not in my lifetime.
And it brings to mind, when we start talking racism and technology, that facial rec has not figured out Black people and people of color and is making all kinds of mistakes. In fact, some of my producers have gone back to wonder when color photography had its models and what kind of people were involved. And so I think that we're not trying to scare the crap out of people. We're just telling them how much crap is coming our way. Here's Wes in Willow Creek. Is it not true that AI could distribute itself into 1 million pieces that operate as a whole, but are distributed everywhere like blockchain? Go, Sharon.
Do we know that it hasn't yet? And yeah, of course it's possible, because the networks that are already established, the unsecure networks, people's home networks that are not properly secured or secured at all, when you've got a technology that is powerful enough and it is learning constantly, it is able to do things that even its own developers already say that they don't know what it's doing. They can't investigate it. They can't change it because they don't know what's going on inside their own creation. Their little Frankenstein has become a blob that's eating the world.
Yes, that's
just
right.
Philadelphia.
On 60 Minutes, the president of Google said, well, our machine suddenly started talking Bangladeshi. And they said, well, why did it do that? And he said, we don't know. We haven't figured it out. And he said, well, and the interviewer said, well, could you unleash something like this if you don't know how it works? He says, I don't even know how the human mind works. This kind of arrogance tells us what we're up against. And once again, I'm not talking about something over the horizon. I might be talking about something that's just around the corner. And remember, when Wes in Willow Creek says, could it do this and could it do that? He's talking one human to another. The AI has already got this figured out. It's moving at lightning speed. It's listening to everything, including everything in China. And remember, as soon as China starts sending all these mass solar panels and batteries into the United States, they're going to have the movements controlled, understood, and tracked of everybody in the country. Mary in Austin, how would AI be used in law and medicine? Well, in law, it's very simple. The concept of jury of your peers, which has not really been obeyed for a long, long time, would be reduced to some kind of a AI system. They would calculate everything about the crime, everything about the perpetrator, the defendant, and they would say, okay, guilty is charged, extenuating circumstances. This guy gets 2 years, this guy gets 9 years. What are you saying, Sharon?
I think I agree with the outcome, but I disagree. You're talking future tense. This has already been going on for many, many years, where the AI systems will calculate, not decide, calculate the different criteria that a person has indicated should be calculated to determine a risk of recidivism, the likelihood to reoffend. And it's problematic. Here's a very good example. If I am from a low-income family, we live around low-income families, there's a lot of crime in my neighborhood, I don't have the money or the wherewithal to escape poverty, I go back and forth in a neighborhood that is crime-ridden, the likelihood that I will encounter someone who's involved in criminal activity, the risk that I might become involved in criminal activity, of course it's higher because of my social circumstances. The AI will look at it and indicate instantly that I am at greater risk to offend or reoffend. That will be taken into account if a human even takes a look at the AI's calculation. So bail is being affected, incarceration and jail sentences is being determined already by AI systems. There's supposed to be human oversight, human intervention, but people are busy. And we've all been raised with the concept that if it's on a computer screen, if a computer says so, then it must be so. Very few people challenge what is presented to them by a computer. We're already there, Edwin.
Although I am challenging that every day because I'm finding one system talks to another system and creates fake information. My bank account, my bank is already sending false information to my QuickBooks and, about people I don't employ and slave laborers I don't have. And so I have to correct this constantly. I agree with everything you said. And I'll give you another example. If you call the IRS and you say, I'd like an abatement, I made a mistake, I paid late, I made a boo-boo, a miscalculation, I never did it before, please abate me, refund my penalty, give me a break. The human element is gone, the human element is gone, and they say, we have a computer system that calculates all of the factors. If you're gonna take the human evaluation, the human element out of crime and crime evaluation and people, we're headed not only to a brave new world, but to a grave new world. So yes,
you're absolutely right.
In law.
And I think to the example in India a couple of years ago, I was reading a report that the police in India were using brainwaves, reading people's brains to determine guilt. They would ask a question, have all the leads attached to a person's head, ask a question, the brain would react as it does to stimulus, and that would be a confirmed indicator of guilt, period.
Yeah, it's kind of like a lie detector test. I was working with lie detector tests and voice stress analysis many years ago. They always says, well, it doesn't work, but we use it anyway. Also, Mary in Austin wondered if it could be used in medicine. I think it could be used in medicine very beneficially, and this will be one of the inducements. The people who don't care or the people who are willing to risk it will say, oh, it's going to do so much for the impoverished people of Africa. It's going to help them, their needs and everything else. What do you say, Sharon?
Not just the impoverished, and it has provided already tremendous benefits. The AI, the computing power to calculate genetic predisposition to certain diseases, treatments, personalized genetic treatments, I think that's a benefit. But when it creates an implantable heart monitor that is not secure and can be hacked, that's a problem. That puts people's lives at risk.
Yes,
So
I was actually
someone
writing
is
about that 2
someone's
years
missing
ago.
a beat there.
I mean,
No
20
pun
years ago. I was writing about that 23 years ago. And there were actually cases of people who were approaching people with these special wands to change the functioning of their heart monitors. Let's go to Harvey in Tampa. Other than blowing up the servers, how can this be controlled? In war, we discuss false flags. Phony AI can cause a war. Yes, Harvey, listen to me. That's what I'm talking about. Phony AI can cause a war. How many times have we talked about a false flag? Everybody was talking about Putin is going to blow up his own facility. Hitler burned down the Reichstag. Hitler started World War II by inventing a phony invasion at the Polish border, even planted dead bodies dressed up in Polish and German uniforms to make it look that way. NORAD is timed. Sometimes it must make a decision within 2 to 3 minutes. Did I see a flash or didn't I see a flash? Does it look like there's a missile coming by or not coming by? Yes, that is part of what we're talking about. This is how we AI could easily confuse us and cause a world war. Sharon.
Well, you're talking future again, and I'm thinking that we've been told all automobiles, all vehicles will have to be electric, electronic, computerized within the next 10 or so years. Artificial intelligence and computer everything is for our convenience. It's for our good. Anybody who objects is being silenced, including by legislation that's being developed and passed in the UK, the EU, Canada, the United States, ostensibly to protect children. And I've got children and I want them protected, of course, but it will end up hurting not only children, but everybody else, because it will undermine our privacy and have to break encryption, putting everything not only at risk, but all the information therefore automatically becomes even more available to artificial intelligence training systems. And I'm thinking ahead saying, where we are today and the speed that technology is changing, what used to be, never mind the science fiction of Star Trek with a personal communicator that we now carry in our pockets and our hands wherever we go. But we're looking at things like the Minority Report, where the artificial intelligence pre-crime creatures would predict criminality, predict behavior, and people would be arrested based on things that had not yet happened. That's going on already. And Minority Report was set in the year 2054. We're only 30 short years from that, and a lot can change before then. I hope for the better. Now that the discussion has started in civil society groups, academics, lawyers, legislators, a lot of technologists, the tech community itself, things might change, hopefully for the better, once they realize that each one of us, each one of them is personally at risk, and it will befall their children and their children's children if they don't tighten it up now.
All right, and it's funny you should say Minority Report, because we have a suggestion here from the Bay Area about Minority Report and talking about this pre-crime and just presuming, well, let's see, you're a black guy and you're from a broken home in a black area, and I say you've got a 71% chance of doing this and doing that. You're a Jewish guy. I suggest you have a 31% chance of cheating me on some kind of a deal. And yes, I believe that Minority Report is a much more dangerous film. It lays out a much more dangerous scenario than most people realize. One of the reasons I'm constantly talking about Minority Report, this film by Steven Spielberg, is because wherever this guy went, it sensed his identity and it started to sell him his favorite beer, his favorite food, whatever he wanted. And this totally does away with the idea of being private. Okay, we've got...
That's already happened. There's billboards that sense the little RFID tag in the key fob, and instantly and this is about 8 years ago already, the billboard changes to say, "Hey, Edwin, why don't you buy this?" Or, "Hey, Sharon, what about that?" Because it senses the ID of the key fob, now the phone, now the car, because they're all computerized. It's already happened.
All I had to do was say, well, I think I'm going to have a lecture series in Salt Lake City in the end of May. Now I'm getting endless Southwest invitations to fly to Salt Lake City.
That's not so bad. You can at least put on ad blockers and choose to delete them and ignore them. But what happens when what we are discussing today is monitored by, we're not sure whose AI and what their views are, and we are labeled as subversives or anti-democratic or any other label? We've got another McCarthyism era coming. It's already with us.
And TikTok has already announced that it is now going to censor those who don't believe in the scientific consensus on climate change. And very soon, I'm going to deal with it in another episode shortly. But right now, Google is showing these little green leaves, and they're calculating the carbon of our airplanes and our routes and our trucks and our movements. There's going to come a time soon. Listen here, Emersons. Listen here, Harv, and everybody else. When they say you cannot drive downtown, you've exceeded your carbon allowance. You cannot fly to Milwaukee or Ottawa. You've exceeded your carbon allowance. That is coming, and I'll have more about that in my climate change episode coming up. Here's a question from Indiana, Christine. If AI can use the internet to learn hate, can it use the internet to learn compassion, to learn love? Christine, that's a beautiful question. But I say the answer is this. The internet is already out there. It's already toxic. We'd have to redo and rewrite all these millions and billions of pages on the internet, everything from these private chat groups, these Reddit groups, these discussion groups, to what is read. And I don't think it's possible to be done. Now, it's true that there could be an elaborate algorithm written that says, oh, you will disregard anyone who wants to hurt anybody or any of those kinds of things. You know, in the movies, they always have, there's a directive that cannot be overruled. You will not hurt a human being. That doesn't exist in any of this, and it's not going to exist in any of this. And remember, if you have 1,000 examples of a non-dangerous AI, there's 10,000 examples of a dangerous one. Sharon.
Again, everything in AI, these language models, are a reflection of humanity's contributions to the unregulated internet that started off with wonderful goals in mind, to be open, available, but it has become owned by a handful of organizations that are not elected, that act as public utilities, that shape our opinions, that track us, that generate and monetize us. They generate incredible amounts of value, nothing tangible most of the time though, and tax dollars for the governments. It's an amazing feat that has been accomplished, but it's been unregulated from day one. And maybe it's just the toxicity that you refer to. I agree, it's there. Although there are some elements that are compassionate, that are kind, that are thoughtful, that do belong. But who's, again, going to be the one to say, this is allowed, that is not allowed, and why them? Who makes that decision? A lot of philosophical discussions could happen, but to say it should change, I don't disagree. It can change. That's a harder goal to accomplish.
All right, here's a question from San Francisco for you, Sharon. if some of this AI is able to get into the wild, it might pay people to carry tasks that ultimately make it impossible to track or trace or delete. It could be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Do you believe that, like life itself, the number one prerogative of AI has to be its own survival? I'd like to say the gentleman asking this is an expert at digital technology, and he knows a lot about this topic. Why don't you answer first, Sharon? Do you think that the AI is actually going to want to preserve its own survival?
I think some AI, not necessarily all, because it's not all good, it's not all bad, but I think some will have been developed or will be developed by somebody who has it in their mind that their technology is superior and ought to take prominence and ought to be able to survive everything. And they will design it in such a way that it will be able to happen. Maybe they were raised on, do you remember the cartoon Pinky and the Brain? World dominance? There are people who don't think like everybody else, who think that their creation, their goals, their motives are the best, and they will try to impose them. That's why regulation isn't going to happen soon enough.
That's right, because I remember when we were at the Ottawa Privacy Convention a couple of months ago, we had one of your esteemed professor guests saying that regulation could take years. And we know, of course, the regulation on either side of the border would be bought and paid for by the people who have a financial interest in this.
Well, yes, and we also see, at least in Ottawa, Canada's capital, there's a proposal that's been floated by the Treasury Board Secretariat of Canada, which is a government organization, a department that basically sets the rules for the government itself. And they have proposed that any regulatory body, and there's a lot of them, within Canada, within the federal government, will be able to have any document they create internally incorporated into the law by reference. There will have to be a list of these documents, but there's no requirement that the list be made public. So basically, it can end up being a completely hidden body of law that Canadians will have to abide by, but they won't know what they are. And the bureaucrats, the unelected civil servants, will be able to change these at a whim.
That's right. Now, you know, we have several people who are deeply involved in high tech and advanced computer technology. So I'm going to ask Wes, who asked me that question. I just want a yes or no. Put it up in the question answer or in the chat. Yes or no. Do you personally, you asked the question, do you believe that AI will have as its number one prerogative to preserve its own survival? And Eve, you're sitting out there on the East Coast. He's on the West Coast. I want you to answer the same question. Yes or no? This is Wes's question. Do you believe? Wes says yes,
Yes.
it will. Eve, give us a response. Do you say yes or no? She might have left the room for just a moment. Let's take another question here from Sai in New Delhi. I know so many Sais in India. What could AI do in war? I'll tell you what AI can do in war. AI can do in 100 hours the same thing that used to take 4 weeks. Israel subjected its last Gaza attack to its AI systems, and it was able to completely eliminate most of Islamic Jihad within a matter of 10 hours, as opposed to going to a 20-day war. It already has systems ready to go in the event that it has to attack Iran. Instead of doing 4,000 attacks from different types of platforms, artillery, helicopter, jets, drones, 4,000 in a week, it'll do 4,000 in a day. Our own Pentagon is trying to get AI to govern its wars, but they want to make sure the AI will definitely be controlled. Now I've got an answer from from Eve, and Eve says yes. These are two brainy people in the computer world, and they both say that they believe These are skeptical people. These are people hard to fool. And they both think that AI may be able to inculcate self-preservation as its number one prerogative. Tony in Sarasota, Florida. How will AI deceive people? It'll deceive people two ways: of its own volition, because it's something it wants to do, and because it's been manipulated by someone like a criminal, like a scam artist, like a espionage, a terrorist, a politician, to put out false information. This is what we're talking about now: false info, false disinfo, rewriting history, and so AI will be deceiving people. And as I said at the beginning of this year in my show 2033, which I advise everyone to see, we won't know if it's true. For heaven's sakes, I could be scheduling a show and speaking to you, and it's not actually me. So I'm beginning to wonder, how much runway time do we have before AI encroaches on the everyday activities of everyday people? Sharon.
We've already seen it happening with the child predators that are creating child pornography, taking a picture from the internet of somebody's child, superimposing that on the image of a child being violated. It's new. It's not the same person, so tracing it is difficult technologically. There was actually finally a conviction for that very act in Canada in the last couple of days. People are being convinced by very credible sounding fake voices, fake images. I mean, it's going to get to the point that we're going to have keywords so that when we talk to somebody that we know, our spouse, our children, our parents, we can challenge each other for the key word, the same as we do with children in school, so that they're protected from the stranger danger, where they get a code word.
A code word. I agree with you. You know, I'm always asking these chat groups, these chat mechanisms, when I talk to Amazon. Trust me, no one ever wants to chat with Amazon or any of these other groups, Shopify, whatever it is. And I say, is this AI or a person? And sometimes I say, what day was it yesterday? What day of the week was it yesterday? And sometimes they answer and sometimes they don't. Peter and Marcia in Los Angeles, can we realistically opt out of AI applications? Answer, no. You won't even know it's happening. It'll be going on and you won't even know about it. Go ahead, Sharon.
Our governments are implementing it and we don't even know it because that's going on in the background. The contracts for development and implementation for AI surveillance of everybody who comes into a building and walks through the hall and goes into this doorway or that doorway is already in place. Our governments are imposing it on us. And not only do we not know about it, the people who work in those very environments often don't know about it.
All right, Norman in Milwaukee. How will AI be used to restrict our speech and even our movements? Well, I think that even now, when I type in Microsoft Word, if I try to use a word that it doesn't want me to use, it says, well, that's a racially charged word. Remember, I write from history. It says, would you like to use a non-offensive word? They're going to tell us words we can use and words we can't use, concepts we can use and can't use. And these can be updated by the hour. And as I say, we're soon going to get to a climate change evaluation where everybody's going to see these green tags, and you've used more than you should have, unless your name is John Kerry, more than you should have in carbon usage today or this week. Please buy a credit or please put this trip off another 7 days. Sharon.
The UK just proposed introducing facial recognition to identify the drivers of vehicles that are older and supposedly gas guzzling, fuel inefficient, even though that very same government has done research proving that the vehicles are less polluting than modern vehicles, but they're going to implement facial recognition anyhow. And Will it impact our speech? Yes. And here's a very, very immediate way. The UK, the EU, Canada, and other countries, but those are the primary ones, are now putting in legislation to protect children. In the EU, is referred to as chat control. In the UK, it's the Online Safety Act. Very pleasant, helpful, fuzzy, warm, fuzzy feeling names to these pieces of legislation. What they will essentially do is promulgate it on the notion of protecting children from online abuse and everybody else from online harms, and protecting us all from misinformation and disinformation. So I ask, who's going to make that call? It's not going to affect our right to free expression, our right to freedom of speech. It's not going to prevent us from pounding the keyboard and saying whatever we want, short of what's already been decided by our courts as hate speech. It is going to require the platforms to scour all content, all images, all texts, all messaging, including end-to-end encrypted messaging, to find those bits of content that are unsavory according to whatever keywords, whatever criteria the bureaucrats have determined. So we can say what we want, it will be blocked.
So
No
it's,
one will hear it.
kind of like when you have a ghost or a zombie account in Twitter or Facebook, you can, as I predicted the algorithm ghetto years ago, you can scream from the rooftops, but no one will hear you. And so then the question will be, if the tree dropped in the forest and no one heard it, did it in fact drop? Gerald in Naples. Now, I don't know if this is Naples, Florida, or Naples, Italy. I'm guessing it's Naples, Florida. It says, how long do we have? How long do we have? All right. I'm going to ask Wes first. Wes, pop a response in your esteemed technical knowledge. I know you're not a guest panelist here, but you know a lot about this. How long do you think we have before we see adverse effects? And Eve, you pop one in too. How long do you think we have? Sharon, let's get a response from you. How long do we have before we see some of the adverse stuff that we've been talking about?
It's already happening. I'm sorry. I hate to be the sound like the negative person, the party pooper in the room, but these things have already started to take place. The problem is they're not getting, maybe it's the AI shielding us from them, but we're not hearing about it. Most of the mass media does not cover this, so there is a lack of awareness. If people realize what's going on, if our legislators understood what's going on, assuming they don't, because if they did and they allowed it to continue, that would be a completely other matter. But if, assuming they don't realize what it is, what the problem is, and what the outcome is about to be, the thing is, we need to make them aware of it. And that's an important part of why I do what I do, is to increase awareness, not only of privacy and of how precious our freedoms are and how important it is to protect those, but to increase the awareness about what these technologies are all about and their potential for good and for not so good. It's up to us. I mean, is it too late? No, because if we just sit by complacently and do nothing, then it will be too late. As long as we engage with other people, increase awareness about it, and we talk to our legislators directly, the people that we have elected to represent our views, and help educate them, tell them what we want, what we don't want, and to push back against those who would implement technology to our peril. It's up to each of us.
Now, Eve, that was very well said. And Eve says, in answer to that same question, it's already happening. She just gives one example. She says lazy police are using face rec without verifying, for example. And this is a real problem. And by the way, a lot of this face rec is being developed or escalated in China with their system of cameras and their social control. And Wes, said, and he's a high-tech guy, we're already seeing some effects, but much more on a different scale shall we see in the next 2 to 3 years. I have my last question here from Muriel in Holland. That's not Holland, Michigan. That's the nation of Holland. I was there, by the way. Pulitzer Hotel, very nice. Muriel in Holland, are you hopeful? I've dragged some experts into this. Eve and Wes, are you hopeful or not? Sharon, are you hopeful? Let's go with Sharon first. Are you hopeful?
I am determined. Hope is not a strategy, but I think not all is lost.
Okay, Wes and Eve, are you hopeful? Pop your answer in there. And while you're doing that, I will give you my response. Am I hopeful? At least for today. That's as far as I'm going to go. I might go to the weekend. Okay, Wes in San Francisco, Bay Area, not particularly hopeful, not yet. And Eve on the East Coast, moderately, especially if clueful people keep swinging. Despair is not an option. These are the good people. These are the good people. We're out of time, so I want you to hold my closing word of wisdom. Just 1 minute away. Do not run anywhere, Rita and Steve. But first, I thank my esteemed and insightful guest, Sharon Polsky. And I might add, unbeknownst to them, I pulled in two of our viewers, Wes and Eve. Plus, I thank my talented international team, including Holly in Nashville, Sims in South Africa, and Christine, that's right, you, Christine, in Indiana, for your outstanding work, as well as many others in numerous cities around the world. My team, each of them, is comprised of very dedicated people. I and we all owe them. I'll see everyone back here next week at 3 p.m. ET. You want to be a friend of the Edwin Black Show? Go to theedwinblackshow.com/support. Keep me independent. You want to hear me in person? Watch my website for events. In late May, I will be in Salt Lake City for a week, 3 events. Consult my events page at edwinblack.com. Until then, head over to any Barnes & Noble in the USA or any Amazon, Walmart, Apple, or Kobo platform in 190 countries across this roiling, toiling, boiling planet, where you can find any of my 200 book editions, such as IBM and the Holocaust, soon to be a major Hollywood blockbuster. God, may I see your light. God should grant me. And my book, War Against the Weak, Internal Combustion, many others. You want autographed copies? Hit my personal, newly redesigned website, edwinblack.com. Click books. Get access alerts to participate live in future shows at theedwinblackshow.com. You'll see a much enhanced and exquisitely produced version of this show and prior episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channel at The Edwin Black Show. Click that notification button like thousands of others. You will love them. We put new ones up each week, produced by a bold, really bold international crew. Follow me at Edwin Black Book on Twitter and Facebook. And now, for my closing word of wisdom, speak up today or be silenced tomorrow. Zooming out.